Hi, this is James Page at the Inca Conference 2023, and I've been joined by Gita Sorensen from GOS. Gita, thanks very much for taking time to come and talk to us. We know you're doing a lot at this conference, so thank you for taking the time to come and speak to us. First thing we wanted to talk about is something that you've been passionate about for a little while, the policy report that Inca put out a couple of months ago now. It's a fantastic report, lots in there, but how has it been received 2 months on? Are people listening?
So thank you, thanks for having me. Yes, I think people are listening. We're not surprised really that it didn't make a big splash in the press. That wasn't really the audience we were aiming for. We were aiming for government and Ofcom. The report is really, it's quite different to what we've done in the past. It's quite openly critical of Ofcom, which was a huge step for Inca to do, because there's always concern that you need to make sure that you maintain good relationships. But we've gotten to a point where we felt there were some very important messages we had to make. In terms of reception, we had a very good reception from both government and Ofcom, particularly from government. We've had meetings with them and they have come to us and said, we support what you're trying to achieve in here. We want to engage with you more. We want you to come and talk us through the detailed rationale, the underlying kind of building blocks of why you reached your conclusions you reached. But then also, what is it then you want us to do about it? You know, it's quite easy to make a high-level policy complaint. It's a lot more hard to say, and this is what you should do, and it's a reasonable thing for you to do because of, X, Y, Z. So very good policy reception there. With Ofcom, you would expect a little bit of defensiveness because it was quite a bold report. Ofcom was a little bit defensive, but generally have been positive and engaging with us. And again, what they've said to us is, let's sit down and talk details. So what they said when we met with them about this was, we may or may not agree with some of the criticisms you are applying to us, but what can we do to try and engage better with you and to overcome some of at least your perceived issues? And we said, well, actually, we've been trying for more than a year now to get you to speak to us about the next WFTMR. Because the WFTMR is a wholesale fixed telecoms market review. It doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? And it's basically the rule set that Ofcom applies for a 5-year period of how it regulates BT and Openreach. And that obviously rolls onto the entire kind of environment in which altnets and others exist. So it's really, really important. It's a very, very big piece of work. It covers multiple different markets. There's a lot of data to be collected, lots of analysis to be done, and lots of really important issues to be looked at. And our concern is that Ofcom has just not been willing to engage with us on that early enough. We've said that we should have started earlier this year so that we had 3 years plus before it comes into effect. The next one comes into effect in March 26. And they've just blankly refused. As a positive outcome of the policy report, we now have an open invitation to meet with Ofcom prior to Christmas to talk about what our priorities are for the WFTMR. And we have taken the opportunity to have a chat with Rebecca and her team at DCID, and they're actually going to join our first meeting with Ofcom so that we can have like a tripartite triangulation of what government's trying to achieve, what altnets are looking for, and what Ofcom believes is in its gift to do and how it can be run. And we think that's a really, really positive first step.
It is an enormous positive first step. It sounds like the rather than maybe annoying the regulator, it's actually brought them to the table, which is great. We heard the Deputy Director for Broadband at DCIT earlier on the same panel you were speaking at, and a cynic may suggest that the whole sense of wanting to encourage Inca and its members to be talking in lots of technical detail is a way of just keeping them maybe more quiet on the overall topic of the way the infrastructure competition regulatory regime is set up. Do you think that's the case, or that they want genuine engagement now?
I see very positive, genuine engagement. we mustn't lose sight of the big policy issues. So everything we do at the lower level of detail must always hook into the policy issues. So that's kind of the way we build things. It's kind of like top down and bottom up at the same time to make sure that we don't lose sight and nothing is inconsistent. And sometimes we come up with things that there might be audience who say, we really want this. And I sit down and I talk it through, analyse it, and I go back and say, yes, on the face of it, in the short term, that could be beneficial to you, but it will cut across what we're really trying to achieve over here. So we are always keeping a sight of the longer-term policy objectives. And I think the DSIT team have been very, very positive with us. And so we have meetings scheduled to go through details with them, both in terms of the underpinning analysis for the report, how we've come out as strongly and why we've come out as strongly as we have, but also what are specific proposals of what can be done? What should government do to try and improve this? The situation is that, government can't do a lot of tangible stuff. I mean, they can change the law, and they've done quite a lot recently in terms of trying to improve like way leaves conditions, and they've, their barrier removal team are working really hard and hugely appreciated by the sector. But ultimately, a lot of the stuff that we have concerns with is in Ofcom's gift, not in government's gift. Trouble is, government has already told Ofcom at a high level what they want them to do. And what Ofcom is saying, it is my interpretation, is yes, we're going to do that. And they make high-level statements that are positive and completely in line with government policy. But then when it comes to the interpretation and the implementation of it, it doesn't actually come through. So it's almost like there are two agendas within Ofcom, and that's a real tension. So what we will be wanting to speak to government about is to say, what can government do to hold Ofcom more accountable? Ultimately, the big changes have to come in Ofcom. But if government holds them more accountable, for example, the Statement of Strategic Priorities, the SSP, specifically called for an annual report from Ofcom to say how they comply with all the elements of it. That has never been done. Ofcom has never submitted a single report on how it's implemented the SSP, and it came in 2019, so they've had a bit of time. So we want to make them sure that they do that explicitly, but also that they say that in every decision Ofcom makes, they have to not just say, and we've looked at the SSP and we think that this is compliant, but actually saying these are the components of the SSP and this is how this is compliant. Much more specific, much more directly accountable. They're the kind of things we'll be working with government on. Yeah.
So hopefully with that tripartite meeting and the doors hopefully being a little bit more open, some of that can be openly discussed, and we'll see some progress in December and into the new year. The infrastructure competition's been the dominant discussion for a little while, but the retail side is also obviously vital. It's the other side. The demand side is massively important. Is everything okay on the retail side?
No, sadly. Good question. So, I mean, and it's kind of the theme of this conference as well, is we think government has been really, really successful in achieving and addressing the demand side, the supply side. So, they've encouraged 20 billion plus investment by just in the alternate community, never mind then the Virgin Media and the Openreach side of investments. We're talking kind of around 50 billion being invested in the next few years for fibre in the UK, which is amazing. They've really created an enticing open environment for investors to feel welcome. But what they probably hadn't realised at the time is that on the demand side, the retail providers is a very, very concentrated market. So we have a small number of very large providers that effectively control 80-90% of the retail market. And they are currently either BT Retail, so tied in to its own Openreach infrastructure, or you've got the Skies, Talk, Vodafone and others who are predominantly using the Openreach network. And then you've got Virgin Media, or VMO2, who obviously are vertically integrated business and are not using somebody else's infrastructure, at least not at this time. So what we have is this fantastic new shiny fibre infrastructure being built, but the large providers are not using it to the extent that was hoped. And I think when we spoke on the panel we just had, Rebecca Molyneux was right in saying we can't tell Sky that they must go and use altnets. Absolutely understand that. There might be something they can do about BT and BT vertically integrated and using other infrastructure where it doesn't have its own fibre infrastructure, but that's a separate issue. But the point there being is we're not trying to get government to intervene in commercial relationships. But what we are saying is there are options for incentive schemes to try and to balance the incentives really for the large retail providers to look more actively at using the altnets so that we can get higher usage and take up on the altnet networks, because ultimately it would be a great shame and frankly an embarrassment to the UK if we have 20 billion plus invested in shiny fibre infrastructure but actually very few people are using it because of a market failure on the demand side. So we're not looking for miracles, but we are looking for support and active engagement in what can be done to rebalance those incentives, that's all.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's absolutely about making sure those two sides fit together and we don't build one and not the other. No. Brilliant. Well, I think the most important part and what we're really key takeaway is how important it is and how crucial it is that Inca is in the middle of those conversations. So it's great to hear. Good luck with the conversations that will take place in December, and thanks for explaining some of those really crucial points to us now.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and we fight on, as it were.